So something we've been doing lately, so we've been talking to small business owners, bankers, lawyers, landlords, basically like anybody that
People who mentor and support small business.
people, mentors, like anybody that has any influence or kind of a stakeholder in government as well in small businesses. And like we start with like really easy questions like what are the things that keep you up at night? Like what are the things that you worry about day to day that it just feels like there might be solutions out there, but they really weren't built for you and how your business works. And those are like usually just the jumping off points where we start and then just listen and see where it goes.
Gotcha. Well, one thing that I've worked at Porch I've been involved with Purple Porch for 8 years, and I worked in the store for 4 years, and 7 months ago became the general manager. So that's where a lot of my like formalized business life has lived, and kind of this like Purple Porch is almost it's in this weird space between for-profit and nonprofit. It is a for-profit, but it's really mission-based, almost more like a B Corp.
Yep.
But the perception from a lot of people is that it's nonprofit. So one thing there that, trying to start a business that's incorporated in a way that isn't very familiar to people in this area, that's been something that we've dealt with. So like that education side.
Yeah.
And it's such a big thing. I don't know how to solve that. I feel like 4 years in, like we haven't solved it. People still come in and not know, like, can I shop here? So there's kind of that access, like I've thought as things as simple as like you could still be a co-op and not brand yourself a co-op. So should we just drop co-op from the name? But then part of me is also like, well, I do feel like a function we have is that raising awareness about the co-op model.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily want to get rid of it. And I think there would be some pushback from existing member owners that really want to be a part of a co-op. And would that signal that we're moving in a different direction? Would they feel like we're not interested in the same goals and the vision and the mission we've had in the past? So that's like the more formal business world that I live in currently. Yeah. And then like one step below, I think, would be the Bird Cell Project, which again, like functions like a nonprofit in that, it doesn't really, we make enough money to keep offering services. We don't, and we haven't really tried, but we don't make enough money to like pay someone to do those. So it's really me and Nalani volunteer our time, and in that we generate enough revenue to pay the artists that we're working with. And so I think, navigating that, I think there's a lot of, like, I'm really interested in self-employment, partially just from like a philosophical standpoint of how do I ensure that I don't exploit employees? And the best way, I think, is to not have any employees. Like, that's the only way that you can really ensure it. I think no matter how hard you try, there's always some sort of dynamic that leaves someone here and someone there, or someone above someone else, or someone in a position where they can make a decision that isn't in the best interest of that employee. And I think artists are a good example of people that maybe would fall in that category. So I feel like that's a super small business, like business of one, and providing like either a really specialized service or a really specialized product. I mean, like a painting, it's a one-off thing. And then like one level below the Bird Cell Project, I would say is like now I did this house concert festival called Homebody, which I could see easily moving more like to be more formalized than the Bird Cell Project. But the Bird Cell Project is incorporated. It's an LLC. Homebody is just something I did.
Yep.
And I've actually been contacted by someone in Goshen about doing Homebody there now. And like I have a friend in West Virginia who is like sad he couldn't come out for the festival. I'm like, well, I could like take it on the road.
Take it on the road, yeah.
And I think that is a viable option for it. I don't know if I necessarily want to pursue it. So that might be, I feel like that's something that small business owners deal with a lot, is the opportunity cost and identifying not just what you can do, what product you can provide, what service you can provide, but which ones you actually want to do.
Yeah.
Because I find that I don't do well at things I don't want to do well at.
Can you tell us more about that as like you've transitioned in Purple Porch from like, it's like member first, then kind of worked there, and now you're a general manager. Like as your responsibilities have changed, has it changed how you thought about being involved?
It definitely changes how I think about my involvement. I mean, I feel like, yeah, as I've kind of moved through the organization, I mean, I guess I have a lot more responsibility now, or at least I definitely have more responsibility on paper, and I perceive that responsibility more, is that I think that, I mean, co-ops struggle, I think, a lot with, they want to be something different than a traditional business. But sometimes at the expense of not utilizing really sound business practices in what they do. So you can make sourcing, like where you source your food from, a high priority. You can make employee benefits and wages and treatment really high on the list. But that doesn't, and in fact, like to reach those goals, you probably need to have really sound finance. And I think that's something that, myself included, we didn't think about in the early days. And I think that that's not specific to co-ops, but like, coming to terms with the fact that a lot of running a small business isn't doing the exact thing that you wanted to do when you created it.
Yeah.
Like, if you really like making skateboards, if you want to start a skateboarding business, probably eventually you're not going to be the person producing the skateboard.
Right.
And so identifying, like, do you want to be the person making the skateboard? Because there are opportunities to do that. Or do you want to be the person employing the people who make skateboards?
Yeah. Do you feel that way about the co-op, or like what are the things you're spending your time on now?
Lately, I've been spending so much time on weird tech issues, and that's
Tell me
rough
more
for
about
me.
that. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know how far back to go even. It's like our point of sale system used to not be integrated with our credit card processing. Well, then the credit card processing got integrated, but they didn't have the code worked out for gift card integration and EBT integration. So we had two terminals. Well, then the secondary terminal is no longer supported. It's an old model. So it went down, and I've spent like the last month daily phone calls between our credit card processor, our old credit card processor, the person who provides our gift cards, the new gift card processor, everywhere from like our account executives to IT people, to get it to the point where actually today our gift cards are up and running again, and though not fully integrated, the code is being worked on by some secondary party so that will be fully integrated. So that's something that, like, I have no interest in doing that. Right. And I like to think no one has interest in doing that. They're out there. I mean, like, solving the issue, I see value in that. But like, no one actually wants to spend their time on the phone between 5 people figuring that out.
Spending a month doing that.
Yeah.
If that could work anyway, like if you could just say, this is how I want that to work, what would it look like?
If I could have called someone and paid them $500 to say, I want this taken care of within 2 weeks, looking back, I would like totally
it's worth your time.
that. Because it's the opportunity cost too. It's that, like, if I'm spending 30 minutes a day on a phone call and then it's occupying the space in my mind, that really doesn't, like, fixing the gift card thing doesn't really create value. Having gift cards available does. So that's kind of like, we've been thinking about lean a lot at Purple Porch. So that's kind of something that, in a way, I mean, I studied sustainability at IUSB, and in a way that's really part of the curriculum there for that. It was more framed in like systems thinking, but not so just different lingo for a similar topic. But with lean, it's really about maximizing value and reducing waste. So I try to look at that in everything we do, from like, from bigger systems, like we're counting inventory. How do I structure it? Like, where do we put the terminals to count these things? How many staff do we have? To like little things like, well, if we have a bin in our drawer with 50 pens in it, and it's like skinny Sharpies, like fat Sharpies, dry erase, pens, pencils, like, do we really need 50 of those? We only have 3 people working in the office. Maybe I need 2 of each of those. It's just like the micro, like, it just like hurts the flow of the process if I have to like rummage through all of, like, you have multiple black ones here. Do you really need, I'm not saying you don't, but just trying to think, like, I guess being like really, really anal about, is this thing here creating value, or is it muddying the waters? And I think that there's a lot of waste in small businesses.
Yeah. How do you systematically start to think about that? Like, because I'm assuming you can walk through the store just like it's everywhere.
I feel like the way I approached it was, I focused on myself. So my desk was a mess, and I was like, well, I'm not going to get any traction in the store if I'm trying to say, like, we really need to integrate lean processes when my desk has like expired food on it, and like clothes, and my drawers are full of junk. So I made it a point to, before I moved forward with anything else, my desk would be clean for 2 weeks. And I think I spent like, over the course of 2 days, I got it to a point where I was like, okay, I really like this. I have a little bin for my like flash drive, pen, pencil. I ended up getting like a large monitor, because now I had space for the monitor, right? Honestly, I had all this junk on there.
Yeah.
And not until I cleared off all the junk did I see, like, I have room for something that probably would add value. And that was, so I invested in this monitor. And before I leave every day, I tidy up my desk. It takes me like maybe 2 minutes, but it's like, well, that means someone else who comes in and needs to use my desk when I'm not there can. That means when someone's on their lunch break, they have a clean spot to do it. That means when I walk in the morning, if I have notes, I have like 1 or 2 notes on a blank slate, I can actually approach them and do something instead of just seeing it in this mess. So once I got that square for like 2 weeks, and now it's been like 2 months that my desk has been clean almost every day. And then I said, well, now it's about, let's make the office lean. So I get kind of weird on coffee. So I didn't do this personally, but I ended up drinking a cup of coffee like at 5 o'clock, and then like 5 to 7, I ended up cleaning the office. And that's a bigger project, obviously. But we've got books here, and we've got folders here, and it's like, well, these folders could go in a file or in a file cabinet. These books, well, they could go on the shelf, and there's our little like library, and so on and so on. So that's kind of where we've been starting. And then like departmentally. So our produce manager is really into this concept, partially because of a book, The Lean Farm, which was written by Ben Hartman and Goshen. So thinking about like this idea of touches. Every time you touch something, you've reduced its value, because that's time. If it's produce, that's like the time, that's like its shelf life has just diminished because you touched it. So how few touches can we get a process done in? And then kind of asking ourselves why until we get to the root. So trying to think, I guess broadly it's easy to see an issue arise, like maybe at the cash register, there's a misring with some specific product. It's like, well, why is there a misring? It's like, when the product came in the store, did it actually get entered into the computer system? No. Okay. Well, so there's some sort of failure in the like receiving department. And so just instead of getting, I think humans have a tendency to get, an issue arises, they tend to get bogged down with the feeling of like there's an issue and this is dumb and this is stupid and I can't believe it, blah 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 blah, instead of getting like, currently I'm more like in the mindset of like, oh, there's an issue, oh, how can I solve this, like getting seen as an opportunity instead of a negative thing.
Do you feel like you have transparency in, I mean, because it sounds like, especially in a store, like everything, there's a lot of stuff moving all the time. Do you feel like you have transparency into where things are going wrong?
To solve problems. I mean, that's what you guys are all about, right?
Yeah.
It's identifying the issue. So I guess kind of what you're talking about, I mean, I feel like through open book, continuous improvement, and lean, it's like almost creating a staff at the co-op that is like a cohort, right?
Yeah,
it's like they're all eager to identify the real problem and put the time in to solve it. And then, so yeah, I guess going away from Purple Porch a little bit, something I struggle with in like the Bird Cell project and with doing house concerts, I think I just like started thinking about this more deeply recently, is I think it's really important to identify who you're willing to take money from. That's something that I know I do that in my head. Like I'm like, I don't, like, so a house concert, for instance, I do suggested donation for basically all my shows of between $10 and $15. If I would say I'm pretty firm about that there is a suggestion, but if like I don't know who gives and I don't know who doesn't and I don't really care, I have found at the end of the day, I'm averaging like in donations what I would get if I ticketed.
Charged.
And 100% of the money brought in goes to the musicians. But it's just, so the house concert I'm doing this week actually, someone gave me some money to do it, which is awesome because it's much. I said, like, they said, do you want to do something for Idea Week, like Purple Porch or the Bird Cell Project? I'm like, I'm not sure what we could do, but I could probably do a house concert. And they had just come to my house concert festival and really liked it, and they were all for it. I said, well, it's a lot easier to do this if I can have a couple $100 that I can pay the band with. So basically, when I get something like that, like an underwriter, I guess you would call it, it allows me to then say, like, spend my time getting the person in the room that wants to listen to the musician, as opposed to spending the time getting the person in the room who has the $10 to give. And I think that's an important distinction for me to make, is that I don't know, I have a lot of conflict with this because I don't like to necessarily take like outside money to do it. I like the idea of the person enjoying the music is the person who paid to enjoy it, and it's like kind of linked there. But at the same time, it's like, well, if someone gives me $300 to pay this musician, well, then I can focus on like, who's never been to a house concert but would think this is cool? Who do I know likes house concerts but is currently unemployed? Or, who, because there's time to like kind of mingle with people before and after, who should be in the room to chat with the people who are also into this sort of thing. So that's something that I don't think I thought about enough getting into anything I've done in my life, is because it's not wrong to get paid for a service you provide.
Right.
So you just need to be motivationally fit for the service you provide, like who's it serving and who's paying for that service, and how do you feel about that? Because then you can, it's kind of like identifying a market, but identifying the right market that fits in line with how you want to approach the endeavor you're doing. And I've kind of tested models of pay. So for a house concert, the suggested donation is 1 labor hour. How much do you get paid in 1 hour of work?
Interesting.
Because it is kind of crazy to me, like, someone making $1 million a year that comes out to be like $500 an hour, I think. And someone making $15,000 a year, that's $750 an hour.
Right.
It kind of seems crazy to me that like they might be in the same room and both be suggested to give $10. So trying to figure out, and I think that's like, I really like that concept. I think it's a little like weird to some people, and it's probably a little like anarchist or something. But I think it's probably a better way of approaching these things. It's just not what is culturally like normal right now.
What are some of the issues you see the artists that you bring in struggling with? Like as they're trying to, you know, I'm assuming some of them are trying to make a living, whether it's bird cell or house concerts.
I think something that I see artists, musicians, and just like probably just small business runners in any sense is, it kind of comes down to like maximizing value and reducing waste a little bit, is that if you're say you're a really talented vocalist and guitar player, that's your value, right? You might not be good at booking. You might not be good at design. So I think focusing on the area that you're best equipped to do it, and being comfortable outsourcing some of those things to people that can do it really well. I guess I look like back to Purple Porch briefly, and even the Bird Cell project too is like design work. I can't really design things very well. Like the past few months I've learned a little bit, and I feel like, okay, if I'm designing for something for myself, I can do it and I'll feel comfortable with it because I'm comfortable being like I'm kind of like 70% on everything. Like I'm not good, I'm not exceptional at anything, but I'm like 70% on most things. But if you want something to be 100%, if I want something to be 100%, I know I need to go to someone else to do it. Does it cost money? Yeah. But me spending 40 hours in front of a computer trying to figure it out and then producing a subpar product, in the long term, that's going to hurt what I'm doing way more than paying someone $1,000 to do this.
Do you think most of the artists and musicians that you speak to have that same mindset?
I think there's a lot of control that people that do art want to have, and I think in some areas it's very necessary. But I do think that's probably a difficult area.
We've heard that a little bit of like where it's like on paper you can show someone that's still doing payroll by hand that this would save you 15 hours a week. Right. And what could you do with that 15 hours back to your problem solving thing? But they still won't necessarily, like just showing them that math is not necessarily enough to show them the value.
Yeah, and especially in things where the return on the money you spend isn't obvious. So something like design, I think, is a good example of that. Or even like you investing in the monitor for your desk. It's not like you buy that today and then you see you're making $200 more every day starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's other like decision points that you've come to with Purple Porch that are like, which is like, should I invest in this thing?
Oh.
I don't know.
The gift card thing actually ended up being that way a little bit, is that I could have bought for $600 another terminal that would run our EBT and our gift cards. But I weighed my options. I was like, well, $600, that's a lot of money for us. And it wouldn't be integrated. And every time we run a transaction that isn't integrated, there's the potential for failure in that like someone keys in the wrong number, whatever it may be. And so I was really interested in getting it integrated. We saved $600. The process took a little bit longer, but 2 years from now, we should have the same terminal running the same transactions, and no one will even have remembered that we used to have a third terminal in the middle that you had to use for this specific type of transaction that we only get twice a day.
Right.
So, I think it was worth it. It's worth, like, I spent the time now, and hopefully it pays off in the long run. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's some other options. Oh, here's one, I guess. We dealt with this issue for forever, is that in the kitchen. Okay, so you want good quality sharp knives in the kitchen. Well, who's going to sharpen them? When are they going to sharpen them? Do you then need to have two sets of knives so you can have the one out to be sharpened? How many times can they be sharpened before they're past their useful life? The person sharpening them is presumably putting in their car and driving them somewhere. Are we paying them mileage for that? There's all this stuff involved with that. Well, I heard there was a knife sharpening service around here. I contacted, actually I'm not fully sure how to pronounce his first name, Alan over at Crooked U. And I said, hey, I heard you use a knife sharpening service. Who is it? How much does it cost? Do you like it?
Yeah.
He says, Cosini Brothers in Chicago. He's like, I think it's like $50 a month or something. I contacted them. Now, our knives get changed out monthly. Someone comes to our store with a box of knives. They take our knives. They give us brand new knives, the exact ones we want. We say we want 3 of these, 2 of these, 1 of these. It costs us $35 a month. No one has to think about sharpening them. No one has to go out of their way to sharpen it. Like, the time it would take someone to go monthly to collect the knives, for us to invest in knives, to drive to the farmer's market probably, to leave them, to get them picked up a week later.
Yeah.
The $35 is like, as Michael Wicks would say, it's a no-brainer. It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that one's interesting to me, too, because probably before you heard that service was available, you would have never said, like, oh, if only there was a way that somebody would do this for me.
Yeah.
And then you heard it. Yeah, so how did you hear about it? You just heard someone talking about it.
I think Sabrina, who was our former kitchen manager, she knows Alan, and I think she mentioned it to me. And we were friends on Facebook, but didn't really know each other. And I'm like, well, he's into food. He'd probably be happy to talk about knives.
It's worth the knives, yeah.
And this is a good starting point for our relationship. So, yeah, he responded right away. And I think then I called him that day, and 2 days later they shipped us knives, and we've been working with them for like 3 months now.
Cool.
And so I think of that in terms of like value versus waste, is that customers don't value that we have sharp knives. They don't care. They care that the food is timely, that it tastes good, and for our clientele, I think they care where it's sourced to a certain extent. But I guess like kitchen employees are a customer too.
Yep.
And so if that's that was a complaint, multiple employees have complained in the past 4 years. We could never get a system put in place. So I guess instead of we had created a bad system, a system that we know these need to be sharpened, but no one ever identified how often, who's going to do it, where are they going to do it, how much is it going to cost. So we just threw the system out, and we let someone do all that for us.
Right.
And then that, for $35, it frees up all that headspace in the kitchen manager's mind, in my mind, and staff don't complain about knives anymore.
Probably morale around the whole thing.
I mean, it went a long way.
Right.
I love those little things that like hardly cost anything, but like it just shows so much that it like just changes the dynamic of the culture in that space.
Any last questions, Maria? Because I gotta go downtown.
I think the
My last question is this. It sounds like you have like a pretty cool culture of like continuous improvement and people always trying to get to the root of things and problem solving internally. I'm curious if there's any issues that come up that it's like, we as an internal team really aren't the ones who can solve this problem.
There are definitely those things, and I guess the way that we have solved that is creating a culture where it's okay to ask for help outside. So like we're a co-op. Part of being co-ops have I think it's 7 guiding principles. One of those is cooperation amongst cooperatives. So I chat with Brad from Maple City Market. He's their general manager a lot. He used to work for Blooming Foods, which is a big co-op in Bloomington. He was actually like an on-staff co-op consultant. Like other co-ops would pay him to go consult for them. And I'm in a network of Great Lakes region co-op general managers. So, in most businesses you don't have to totally recreate the wheel. In co-ops, it's that's part of our whole existence is the idea that we're going to come together to solve this issue and not hold this kind of proprietary information. So I wrote a new employee handbook for the co-op. And again, that's something I have no desire to write a handbook. That is dull. It sucks. And it took me a lot of time. But I started with Oriana Co-op, a big co-op up in Traverse City. They sent me their handbook in an editable format. And then I made it fit what we do. So if I had started from scratch, well, 1, it probably still wouldn't be done. 2, it would probably be missing a lot of important things. I'd have to run it by lawyers a whole lot because it would I'm not equipped to really write a handbook, but someone who was equipped wrote a handbook, and they're willing to give me access to that. So yeah, I think that's something that's important for anyone starting something, a new venture is you don't have all the answers. In fact, it's the only thing you know is that you don't know anything, really. Just approach it from a perspective of you want to know and you're interested in solving the problem, but you don't know how to solve the problem yet.
Yeah.
And I guess it's similar, we're just having this conversation now because there are issues out there, and I'm sure you know what some of the issues are, but you're going to talk to 50 or 100 people, and you're going to get a better sense for what those issues are. So.
Cool. This was neat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I hope it wasn't, felt like I was talking a lot.
That's the point. No, I think the perspective of a co-op is really cool just because the approach is a little bit different. I think there's a lot that we could learn from both the problems that you experience because in your co-op, but also the workarounds, some of the things that you guys do that maybe other businesses don't, but could.
And we've even gone beyond our industry to seek information. So diving into lean,
right?
Lean's more often associated with manufacturing. So we went to ATC, Aluminum Trailer Company, down in Bremen, and toured their new facility and chatted with their founder and CEO for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And we're on the floor and saw the processes they're doing, and totally different industry. But in 6 months, he's going to come visit us.
Cool.
So he can see where we've gone.
Cool.
Yeah.